Hello everyone, and thank you for tuning in. My name is Bruce Buffington, and my co-host is Ann Morrow. Cycology Today is brought to you by Northwest Bicycle Safety Council, a nonprofit organization. Our shows are on cycling in general and bicycle safety in particular. We air the third Tuesday of the month, and that's our live show, and you can catch the replays on Channel 21. The live shows are on Comcast Cable Channel 11 and Verizon Cable Channel 22. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Bethany Village Subway for providing the meal for our volunteer crew. Well, Ann, it looks like we have a pretty good lineup for tonight. So who's on tonight?
Well, we're going to start tonight with President of Portland Wheelman Touring Club, and that's Phil Brown. And he's going to talk to us about a variety of things, including an accident that he was involved in and a special ride that the Wheelmen have coming up. And so we'll find out a little bit about him and the club. And then our second segment this evening is the Kaufmans, Dan Kaufman, who films bicycle-oriented type films, and his wife Kirsten, who sells real estate by bike. And so that's a real interesting niche that she's carved for herself in the Portland area, and we're going to talk to her this evening.
Sounds like a pretty good lineup to me. Well, I would like to thank our viewers at CCTV down in Salem, and they're joining us again. This is their first year with us, so I hope you guys are having a good time, and I hope that if anytime you have something that you would like to see on the show, just give us a buzz, and we'll see if we can arrange that. Now, I wanted to point out, I had a very interesting evening about a week ago.
You said you went to traffic court.
Well, it was for people who have been. I didn't go to traffic court. I went to the Share the Road class put on by the Trauma Nurses Talk Tough, Portland Police Bureau, the BTA, and it was founded by a Multnomah County judge, and his name is Christopher Larson. He's a cyclist who rides to work. And so they put on these classes. I got to sit in as a guest. No, I did not get a citation. There were about 100 people there, and it's surprising how many cyclists had received citations. And I guess part of the program is you take this class and either you can get your fine reduced or something like that. But what I was most impressed with all the things that I learned, is how the judge pointed out some of the basic errors that bicyclists, drivers, and pedestrians make. So I wanted to share some of those.
Please do.
Well, the most common driver errors are running signals and stop signs, okay? Speeding, operating any vehicle under the influence, and that means a bicycle as well, and improper turning and signaling. So those were the most common errors that the drivers make. The most common errors for bicyclists, he pointed out, are riding without proper lights. That's a big one. Running stop signs and signals. That's another one. And riding the wrong way on the road.
Oh. And
then they pointed out a few little things about pedestrians. They didn't leave anyone out because many of us bike, drive, and walk. So pedestrians, jaywalking and disregarding traffic signals or signals. The other one was darting out and not crossing at a crosswalk, which often do you see that? And the other one is not seeing and being seen. So I thought those were some pretty interesting topics among the many topics that they had that night. I was very impressed with it. I was glad I received that invitation and was able to monitor that class.
Sounds like something you could teach, Bruce.
No. Actually, I'll stick to what I know best. The colonel only does chicken, and I only do my little role that I do for Northwest Bicycle Safety Council. Well, why don't you go ahead and start things off? You've heard enough about... Oh, you know what? You didn't tell me why I had to come dressed like this.
I asked you to kind of dress a little special this evening, Bruce.
Yes, you did.
Because we've got something coming up later in the show, and we'll deal with that later. I want to talk to Phil first, and then I'll tell you what you've got to do and why you're all dressed up.
So I'm going to have to sit here and wonder what's coming up for me. What's in store.
Don't spill anything on yourself in the meantime.
I won't.
Well, Phil, welcome to our show.
Thank you.
And you're the current president of Portland Wheelman Touring Club.
Yes, I am.
And you do other things regarding bicycling. You're a Clark County resident, so why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do at the current time for bicycling?
Okay, well, in addition to serving as the president of the Portland Wheelmen, I'm also a member of the Clark County Bicycle Advisory Committee, and we meet once a month. Actually, I'm missing tonight's meeting, but this month's meeting because it is tonight, and we talk about issues for bicyclists in Clark County and all of the municipalities within the county. And basically everything that happens concerning bicycle riding in Clark County, all of the changes to the roads, additions to the bike lanes, signage for bicycle riders and things like that, all have to be floated in front of the BAC before they're instituted. And it's kind of a nice feature that the county has come up with, where they basically have to have our stamp of approval before anything gets done, because they want to find out what the bicyclists actually think of their ideas before they implement them.
Could I ask about the helmets? When they put in the helmet law, they conferred or consulted with you guys on that before they actually swung into action? Absolutely
they did, yes. They brought it before the Bicycle Advisory Committee about 3 months before the City Council actually started talking about it formally to get our input. They wanted to find out how we would like to see the ordinance structured, if indeed we were in favor of the ordinance, and the consensus on the BAC was that we were in favor of the ordinance. So we helped not only to put our stamp of approval on it, but we in a way helped write it also.
And it's been nice having you play these two roles simultaneously, because you kind of bring that Bicycle Advisory Committee information to the club, and so we stay more informed, I think.
Yeah, I try to do that. I let the club know what's going on in Clark County on a regular basis, and then I can also, because of my close ties to the bicycling community, as far as like riding on a recreational level, it gives me greater insight when I talk and give my input at the BAC meetings also.
Yeah, I'm sure that's true.
And just so that our viewers know, Ann and I are both members of the Portland Wheelmen Touring Club.
Yes, you are.
And have been for some time. And we actually work under you when we're out doing leading rides and things of that nature. And then I work under my dear friend Ann when I do the welcome rides. And so that's pretty well structured, this club.
Yes, it is. Yeah. The club's been around for, I think 1971 is when it was started, and we've had a lot of practice and figured out how to structure the club so that it works really well. And it's one of the most organized clubs in the United States, and also absolutely one of the most active. We hold more bicycle rides each year than almost any club in the U.S. And that's something that I think we should all be proud of. And thank you guys for all the work that you do for the PWTC, because you both do quite a bit.
Enjoy it. It's kind of like I grew up with my cycling years was through the PWTC.
Yes, that's right.
Well, Phil, let's get to your accident, because you know, sharing information about accidents, you know, we don't want to dwell on the negative part, but we can all learn, you know, when somebody's in an accident, what can we learn from that? So tell us what happened to you. You had a fall and got injured.
Yes, I did. I've been a bicycle commuter since 1980. I've ridden back and forth to work many, many times, and this is only the second time that I've fallen down in all those years of riding back and forth to work. The first time I got knocked down by a dog and was injured in that one, but that's been 19 years ago. And so my safety record's been pretty good. But on my way home from work on September 23rd, I hit a rock that was in the bike lane, and I didn't even see it, which is pretty unusual for me. The bike went one way and I went the other, and I landed on my right side pretty hard and fractured my pelvis.
Oh.
So it was a pretty painful experience. And it's been, I'm back on the bike now. I beat the doctor's expectations as to when I'd be able to walk again and when I'd be able to get back on the bike again. And so I feel pretty good about how quickly I healed. But I did learn a couple of things. And the main thing that I learned is that you can't ever let your guard down. Watch where you're going all the time. That's and I thought I was better than that.
Well, that's in line with some of the things we point out on just about every show, and that is to pay attention to your surroundings, and that means all the time.
Oh yeah.
Now, I have to admit that I hit a rock on the Strawberry Century and slammed to the ground. I didn't see it either, and that can happen. But basically, you normally, as a rule, you take pretty good care in your cycling. Is that right?
Oh, I try to. You bet. I like keeping my skin where it belongs, on the outside of me, and I don't like leaving it on the pavement. So, yeah, I try to be as careful as I can and follow all the rules of the road, signal my turns. I ride with a rearview mirror as well as with a helmet-mounted rearview mirror. So, in order to use my mirror, I have to have my helmet along, and I've done this for many, many years, and but it really pointed out to me that even an old codger like me, who's ridden as many thousands of miles as I have, can make a mistake.
Yes.
And I need to make sure that I just pay attention all the time and make sure that I know what's coming, what's ahead, what's behind, what's all around me, and so that this won't happen again.
And I think it's a good thing that you had a good full recovery and you're back out on your bike.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm glad.
I bet.
It was tough pushing myself around the house in my office chair for nearly a month without being able to stand up or put any weight on my right leg at all.
Now your wife Cheryl rides with you as well.
Yes, she does. Yeah, she also commutes. She rides back and forth to her job, and she's only gotten into cycling since actually since we got married 7 years ago. She hadn't ridden a bicycle for a long time before we met, and she has really embraced it and really come a long ways. And I'm very proud of her cycling skill and how much she enjoys it. Something that we really like to do together.
Good. That's great. I'm a big believer in married couples playing together.
I know you are. Because I know your husband and how much you and Jim like to ride.
Yeah. Well, let's go on. I want to make sure we have time, Phil, for a special ride that the Wheelmen are planning right now on December 20th. And why don't you tell us about why the Wheelmen are having this particular ride and how people can get involved if they'd like to?
Okay, sure. We have a member whose name is Keith Tickner, who actually has been a member of the club since 1979. He's been a member longer than I have, and there aren't too many of those. Keith is, I think he joined the club when he was still a teenager, because he's not that old of a gentleman. He's married and has 3 young sons, whose ages range from 7 to 12. And last summer, unfortunately, he was diagnosed with terminal brain cancer. Keith has undergone, since then, chemotherapy and radiation treatment. He's still involved in the chemotherapy, and it's taken its toll. He's not able to work right now. He has hopes that maybe he'll be able to return to work on a limited basis, but that remains to be seen. So there's no money coming in. And of course, with 3 boys, the household expenses don't go down. And so the club decided that we wanted to help him with some of his expenses. So we're having a benefit ride on December 20th. To raise money to help the Tickner family. So we're going to start that ride at 11 o'clock over at 17th and Southeast Millport Road, which is, Millport is on one side of 17th and Waverly Drive is on the other side of 17th. It's going to be at 11 o'clock on December 20th, and we're asking people to bring a donation to help the Tickner family. And then after the ride is over, we're going to have a potluck lunch at another member's house, which is just a half a block away from the starting location. And at that time, we'll be able to meet Keith and his family and share food. So we're asking people to also bring a dish that they can share with a few other cyclists. And we're hoping to raise enough money so that we can help the Tickner family in a meaningful way. And the nice thing is that the gentleman who's hosting the luncheon has also agreed to match funds. So that every dollar that we raise for the Tickner family, he's going to meet that with $1 out of his own pocket.
Now, how do people find out about the ride? Is this going to be on the website, or what way would I find out more about the ride?
Well, it's being published in our newsletter for the month of December, and it's also going to be on the PWT website, which is www.pwtc.com. And there will be directions on how to get to the starting location if you don't already know, and some more information about the ride.
My understanding is we only have a couple of minutes left. That went real fast. But briefly, the Bike Gallery donated a jersey that's signed by Lance Armstrong. That's
yes,
right
this Discovery Channel jersey is autographed by Lance Armstrong. It was donated by the Bike Gallery specifically to help raise money for the Tickner family also, which, and I'd like to thank the Bike Gallery for that. And we haven't quite yet decided how we're going to do that, but stay tuned. We have a couple of ideas. We want to get the biggest bang for the buck that we can out of that jersey. And so we haven't finalized our plans yet, but we're going to come up with some way to make money off that jersey and put it in the hands of somebody as a result of that, and help the Tickner family even further.
Well, I hope you get a lot of riders. I know I'll be there.
Yeah, I plan to be there.
Yeah.
I'm going to lead the ride, so you know I'll be there.
Yeah,
and we know
that's
you'll
right.
be
You're
there.
the leader.
Well, with the remaining time, we have a little special topic you wanted to cover regarding a helmet.
Well, could you get this? Is
sure.
We brought
This wasn't mine.
No, this wasn't.
So
I'm glad my helmet didn't look this bad. This was another one of our members who had his computer sending unit came loose from the front fork of his bicycle and ended up in his forks, or in his spokes, and it stopped his front wheel.
If you get hold of so the camera can pick it up. And
you'll notice that the whole front end of the helmet is missing. He hit the ground pretty hard, and there's even a little bit of blood on the helmet, unfortunately, but he survived.
He's okay.
He ended up with some cuts in his forehead and his lip, and he was a little bit banged up, but he healed up even more quickly than I did, and he's back on the road, and he's smiling. He has a new helmet, as do I, and so this, but it really illustrates how important helmets are, because that could have been his head.
That could have been his head. That much of his cranium crashed in.
And that's what they're for.
And I know Tom, a very, very good guy, and I'm glad that he came out of this okay.
Oh, me too. It's good to see him smiling.
Oh yeah, and he's back on his bike, and he's leading rides and just having a good time. You know, we're all recreational riders to a degree. I don't know if any of us race. I know I don't.
I don't.
No.
But yeah, and I know that you had your helmet with you because you talked about the fact it goes with you because your mirror is attached to it.
That's right.
That's a good way to get it out there all the time.
I have a brand new helmet because my helmet also ended up broken in about 3 or 4 spots. Not that badly, fortunately, but I know that had I not been wearing a helmet, my head would have been broken in 3 or 4 spots instead.
Yeah. The law in Oregon, the law requires anyone under the age of 16 to wear a helmet, and for those who are over 16, it's just a good idea. Now in Vancouver, we understand that the law requires everyone to wear a helmet.
It's an all-ages helmet.
So if you ride from Portland to Vancouver and you get across one of those bridges, make sure you have your helmet on, I understand.
Yes.
That's right.
Well, we only have another probably a minute that we can use for the rest of this segment. Are there any special messages you would like to send to those who would like to learn how to get into group riding? I know that people for the first time get excited about that. I remember how excited I was the first time I rode in a group. How would they get involved with a PWTC group ride?
We have a lot of group rides. We have non-group rides and group rides. The group rides are done at a slower pace, and we keep all the riders together. And if somebody is going a little bit more slowly, we try to match their speed. And you can find out more about that by visiting almost any bike shop in the city of Portland and getting our what we call the Rider's Digest, which is a list of the rides that we have for each month. The new one comes out every month, and all the rides are listed in there, and it will say in the description of the ride whether it's a group ride or a non-group ride. And we have a really wonderful series of rides and some really terrific ride leaders who lead these group rides. And it's a great way for somebody who's new to the cycling experience to get introduced to it.
I agree.
And it's a nice, safe environment, too.
Well, if my timing is right, we've come to the end of this segment. And if you'll sit there for a moment, I want to see what Ann has in store for me.
Oh, and I can hardly wait, too.
Well, Bruce, we want you to do a PSA, a public service announcement tonight. So
you do?
Yep. You know, sometimes you have to do this. You kind of have to sell this TV station and the show and stuff. So tonight's your night. That's why I got you all dressed up.
Okay, and then?
And I've got some props because it's going to be cold where you're going.
Where am I? Are you just kicking me outside into the cold, or
yeah.
what are we talking here?
So, well, the crew will kind of watch your back here, but you're going to do this, and we've got the teleprompter all set up, and
okay,
you're just going to do a little PSA for us.
A cold reading
yes,
from the teleprompter. And
nice.
I don't know what the topic is, and it's just going to be something that I'm going to read.
One thing I've learned about you, Bruce, you're a quick study. You can do this.
Well, I was looking at that set over there, and it does look like it's pretty cold, but I didn't know that was for me.
It's all yours.
So I imagine you want me to put these on and everything.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Then while I get ready, maybe you could take 30 seconds to wrap up over there.
Okay. Well, Phil, it's been really nice having you on the show, and I'm glad you were able to share about the Keith Tickner ride, because we really do want people to come out, and I want to tell anybody that's ever ridden with the Wheelmen and ridden on our Pioneer Century or our Spring Century that we have every June. If you've ridden that ride, you've probably been involved with the Tickner family, because they always are manning one of the rest stops, and those little kids have grown up before our eyes at the rest stop, stirring the Gatorade and cutting up cantaloupe and whatnot at the rest stops.
Serving bagels with peanut butter and all of that.
So if you've done those rides, you know, come on out for this ride and help their family, because they've helped you. So it's time to reciprocate a little bit.
Yes, it is. Thank you for having me on. I've really enjoyed it.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. We'll have to have you back.
Okay.
To talk a little more about whatever's going on in your world.
Okay. I'd like that. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Well, it looks like Bruce is just about ready now and all set up and ready to go with his PSA. That's a public service announcement I had to learn. So we can go ahead with that then.
Whether you are a seasoned bicycle commuter or just getting started, the following how-to tips can help. For many people, selecting a route is the most difficult part of using a bicycle for transportation or fitness. The routes you normally use to get around by car may not be the best routes for bicycling. In order to ride safely, comfortably, and free from hassle, you and your bike need to be ready for the road. Some things to consider include helmets, bike maintenance, tools, clothing, backpacks, and other gear. Here are a few tips that may help you have a good riding experience. Major thoroughfares can be intimidating during morning and afternoon rush hours. However, most neighborhood or secondary streets are fairly quiet. If you are going to ride during rush hour, plan your route carefully and take your time. Let the cars do the hurrying. You should be having fun. Be careful riding sunset or sunrise when motorists may have the sun in their eyes. You may be able to see fine after sunset, but motorists will have problems seeing you. Use lights, reflectors, and high visibility clothing because some motorists may not be able to see you. Most of all, maintain awareness. Know where cars are in case you need to do some emergency maneuvering. Yield to cars you meet at intersections because the driver may not see you. Choose low traffic residential streets for your trips so that you can ride near the center of the lane and avoid riding through puddles and wet leaves. Look further ahead to give yourself more time to stop to allow the brakes to squeegee the water off your tire rims. Be sure to brake before a turn versus during a turn to avoid skidding out. Watch out for road hazards that become dangerous when wet: manhole covers, railroad tracks, leaves, and painted surfaces. Helmets are so light, well ventilated, and stylish that there is no good reason not to wear one. Have your bike checked out regularly by your favorite bike shop. Brakes, cables, shifting, straight wheels, tire condition, and tightness of screws, nuts, and bolts are just a few vital areas to be gone over. Just because you haven't had a breakdown before doesn't mean you should not be prepared for one. In a small bag, carry a set of Allen wrenches, spare tire tube, tire patches, and tire levers, and make sure you know how to use them. You are much smaller than a car, and chances are motorists won't be looking for you. Using lights and reflectors from dusk to dawn is a safe idea. Please have a great riding experience, and remember, you are responsible for your own safety, and please share the road.
Thanks, Bruce, for sharing some of those safety tips, and it's certainly relevant information in the winter as we are trying to ride our bikes in kind of inclement weather, and Phil sharing his example of having an accident on his bike in a rock, and sometimes those rocks are under the leaves out on the road. You don't see what's under the leaves, so be extra careful in this winter and fall weather.
Okay,
Good job, Bruce. Here, let me brush some of that snow off your shoulder.
I'm telling you, they have made those words any smaller on that teleprompter.
You did great, Bruce.
Well, I'll tell you what, it was mighty cold over there. I'm glad I got through it. Do I get to keep the...
Yes, you can keep the props.
Thank you very much. Okay, so what do we have in store for our viewers next?
Well, our second segment this evening, we've got Dan Kaufman and Kirsten Kaufman, and we're going to start with Kirsten. She's going to tell us about how she helps people find homes while they're riding their bikes around the neighborhood. We're going to have to learn about that. And we're going to start out with a news clip that kind of sums it up, and we'll lay a nice foundation, and we'll go from there.
Sounds great.
I'm sure they're just about ready to roll that, you know.
Thank you
Yeah.
for having me.
There you. That doesn't look like the news clip. That looks like one of the still graphics.
The Final Cut goes local now. When most people go looking for a new home, they usually drive over and meet their realtor, or they'll climb in the back of the realtor's car and tour their target neighborhood. But KPTV's Jim Hyde tells us about a group of would-be homeowners who are going house hunting on their bikes.
If they get around Portland by bicycle or public transportation or on foot, it made sense to these cyclists to see the neighborhoods from something other than a car.
Okay, here we go.
Meeting at a cafe on Northeast Alberta Street, they strike out to see the houses for sale from their bikes. The cycling shopper says a realtor for Prudential Northwest Properties began conducting tours for cyclists earlier this summer.
We went on Kirsten's last tour over in Southeast, and it's really a wonderful way to see the neighborhood. It's a real leisurely, pleasant ride. And it's fun to see the houses.
They stopped at several open houses just as drivers do. On a warm and humid afternoon like this one, they probably needed a cold drink more than the potential buyers who drove up in an air-conditioned car. But out of choice or necessity, these riders got to know their potentially new neighborhood.
Definitely wanted to go on a tour that was not by car, since I don't have one.
No word yet on whether they wrote any offers while bicycling down Northeast Alberta Street. In the newsroom, Jim Hyde, the 10 o'clock news.
Wow, I can't wait to hear the rest of this story.
Yeah, you're just kind of infamous.
It's gotten me a lot of attention, and it's been a lot of fun. I started my bike tours as a way to reach out to people who are interested in driving less, which is something that's a personal goal of mine and of our family. So I don't know where you want me to start exactly, but
well, so you kind of thought about it from that angle. Was it kind of a epiphany that you thought of this idea, or did it evolve gradually?
I'd say it evolved. You know, I was incorporating cycling into my business more and more. I was doing it on a personal level and then incorporating it more into my business, and got to thinking about how to take that next step. And at the same time that I was thinking along those lines, the Car Free Conference happened in Portland, which was a big and exciting event that my husband Dan was involved with, and some other mutual friends of ours. And I came up with the idea of doing the tours as a way to reach out to other people who are interested in driving less. So whether it be they're interested in commuting by bike or using public transportation or walking, helping those folks find homes that make sense and fit with their lives.
Now I understand you kind of have two different kinds of tours, so to speak.
Yes. So the Car Free Conference was in the summer, and I got my cycling tours going and did those, and they were quite successful and fun. And I found that people are a little bit less interested in doing these tours in the rainier months, and it's a little bit more complicated. So I do show homes by bicycle by appointment now, so it's a little bit more small scale rather than an organized tour this time of year. But I am still conducting my business on my bicycle as it makes sense.
I'd like to know now, does Dan accompany you on some of these tours, or is he home watching the kids?
Well, as you know, we have 3 kids, so so far it hasn't worked out that Dan has come on the tours, but he's been very much a big support and made it possible. And
yeah, I've been wanting to get my camera out there on one of the tours, but KPTV took care of that.
Yeah, they stole your thunder.
No, they did a fine job.
Yeah.
Good crew.
Yeah. So, but Dan has been a huge inspiration to me. As you guys are familiar with his work that he does making cycling videos, and so he's been a big inspiration and introduced me to a lot of people who have also sort of mentored me and been very supportive and also inspiring to me to take this step, which is a big step for me because I, unlike your previous guest, haven't been a cyclist for 20 years. You know, I've just recently become more of a, what you call a regular cyclist, so doing it on a daily basis.
So it was more or less a family decision because it required the support of the entire family in order to pull this whole thing off.
Absolutely. And a lot of people, you know, when you think about jobs that would be highly unlikely to do by bike, I'd say real estate would be up there in the top 3. And a lot of people ask me about that. And it is made possible in large part through the support of my family and just our commitment to driving less. But I also do use I have a van, and I use that when it makes sense. So, but yeah, it's definitely a family commitment, and it's been so well received here in Portland. People are moving to Portland to live this kind of lifestyle. So,
yeah, I see that just looking at the monitor here that it looks like a very interesting way to go if you're looking for particular kind of houses. So typically, what kind of houses are we looking at when we're doing these by bike?
Well, what I like to do is focus on, when I do my group tours, I pick a particular neighborhood that is accessible by bike, that has good bicycle connections, pedestrian access, public transportation connections, and then I try to highlight homes in different price points. So I'm not necessarily trying to sell any of the homes that are on the tour, but rather give people an idea of what it would be like to live in the neighborhood and what the homes look like generally. And going by bike really gives people a different perspective on a neighborhood, and I think it's just a great way for anyone who's considering a neighborhood to experience a location before they buy.
My understanding is that your family lives near a bikeway, so to speak, and that you bike on that for recreation, and the whole family, I guess, gets involved. So that's kind of the same idea that you're introducing people to by looking for real estate by bike, so they can get out for recreation and so forth. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. I'm trying to get people to think in terms of the old real estate mantra was location, 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 and I'm trying to get them to think in terms of proximity, proximity, proximity. So whether it's for your leisure time activities, whether it's where your kids go to school or where you work, thinking along those lines when you make your decision about where you want to live.
Right, and we've managed to find a place, again, like you mentioned, near a bikeway. We can do our shopping, and the school is nearby, and so that reduces our reliance on the auto vehicle, and we're able to, head right downtown, almost completely traffic-free on the through the Springwater Corridor Trail. This is just a great way to go, and I think it really improves our quality of life. We get our exercise in, and it really doesn't take much more time to commute by bike for most of the trips that we need to make.
Especially on that Springwater Corridor. I ride with the senior rollers from Northwest Bicycle Safety Council, and we were on the Springwater Corridor just a few days ago, and you know what was interesting? We ran into the Portland Wheelman riders.
Oh, yeah?
There were about 14 of them. There were 10 of us, and we all converged on the Jazzy Bagel in Gresham, and what a treat.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. Yeah, that Springwater Corridor is amazing.
Right.
It's becoming quite a rush hour down there.
Yeah, it really is. It really is.
And you can take your horse on there. You can walk, ride your bike. I've seen skateboarders and all sorts of activity.
Well, and you got to watch that kayak crossing.
Yeah, that's right. Down by Ontario. Yeah. Oh gosh.
Now you two did just recently buy a house, relatively recently, and so how did some of these elements come into play while you looked for your own house? And did you ride a bike looking into your own neighborhood before you bought?
Yep, we did, as a matter of fact, and of course I represented us on the transaction, and I rode to those meetings as well. I think that we found a location that's very close to where our children go to school, and we do, as we've mentioned, have 3 kids, and we figure we have 10 years of elementary school in front of us, so living 6 blocks from school is very convenient, and also having the direct access to downtown. And in the neighborhood where we live, we have access to groceries, library, parks, community center, all of those things within a quiet, flat ride. So something that I'm big on, and Dan has, and I know Bruce, you've been involved with as well, are the bicycle boulevards in Portland, and I'm really, those have unlocked a lot of potential for people, and I focus on them when I'm talking about real estate and looking at neighborhoods. So it's something that I'm always highlighting.
And not only do you show real estate by bike, you have some recreational type rides that you lead as well, I understand?
Oh, no, just my bicycle tours,
which
tours. Some people attend recreationally.
Yeah, so some people might show up and they don't really want to buy a house, but they just like going on the ride, see where you're going, and have a good time out there with you guys.
Right.
But that is a good skill set to have in this town with all the rides that are going on. Kirsten had to learn how to actually lead a tour.
Yeah, and the safety concerns come into play there, and I limit my tours to a fairly small group. It also helps with getting in and out of the house, and some people have clips on their shoes and some people won't, and we might have to take them off and put them on. Which is another reason we don't do the group rides in the winter. Going in and out, dripping. Yeah. So
now, when you're on these tours, what if you've got a sense of what these prospective homeowners notice about neighborhoods and things that perhaps a potential homeowner in a car doesn't pick up on in the neighborhood? What kinds of things have you noticed?
Sure. Well, of course they're going to notice the amount of vehicle traffic and the flow of vehicle traffic, which most people would probably pay attention to for different reasons. One thing that's come up that I don't really think about that much is pavement quality. That was one thing one of my buyers is really particular about, and she rides a lot, and she's very aware of the quality of the pavement getting, to and from the house.
That would make a lot of sense, because I can remember times when we do the Mount Tabor ride and you're coming back on Harrington, and you're dodging a whole lot of potholes and so forth. And there are spots where the road is smooth, but for the most part, in the neighborhoods, it's an obstacle course. So I could see where that would be a factor.
Another big thing is, it sounds really basic, but it's so critical for people who are riding on a daily basis in the kind of weather that we have here, is the access with your bike to the house. So something like a tuck-under garage where you can roll in right off the street is very desirable to cyclists. Somewhere where you can hang your wet gear and go upstairs is a great arrangement. And on the other hand, there are some houses that cyclists really don't want to look at that are walk-ups, where you'd have to be carrying your bike upstairs every day with nowhere to really put it. So any kinds of bike storage that make it easier to come and go are desirable. So those are some other things people look for.
You mentioned the bike boulevards. And so I guess at this point we could probably take a look and talk about some of those. Is that agreeable to you?
Yeah,
okay.
That sounds like a good idea.
I think that we could go to Dan, and we have a clip regarding the bike boulevards. It's just a short clip. And you produced this movie, B2 Power.
Yes, and you helped.
Well, yes,
Much
I wasn't
appreciated.
I have to say, I really enjoyed it, and I learned a lot myself by doing that. So just to share a little, we have run your movie in a series, and so there are a lot of folks that ask questions about bike boulevards. Can you share a little bit about what they are, how they work, and how you got involved with filming those?
Well, sure. Yeah, bike boulevards is it's not just for bicycles, but it is a way to slow down traffic and make bicycles the through-going vehicle. And as you can see right now on the monitor here, some of the streets in Portland that have been turned into bike boulevards using speed bumps, specialized signals. They shut down certain areas where cars can't go through. In this case here, you see a roundabout, and there's markings that can tell you how to go. It's, again, not just for bikes. It makes a safer, healthier environment for everyone. The neighbors like them because it slows down traffic. They feel safer with their kids out there. Folks who are in wheelchairs or walkers, senior citizens and children are safer because traffic is slower. And for a bike advocate like myself, it's a great way to travel because you don't have to be stopping all the time like you normally would going through residential streets, which for me, a lot of times I don't like to go down a residential street with all the stop signs because you're always losing your momentum. And not as big of a deal if you're driving a car and you've got a few hundred horsepower to get you through to the next location, but when you're on a bike, it's just that one human power vehicle. And so City of Portland's done a lot to increase the number of miles of bike boulevards, and I think it's a big part of why we've seen in just the last year a 28% increase in bicycle commuting, and for a very small investment.
And you also got involved with the bike move. We did have one small clip that we showed of earlier in the year, but you've done some productions on that as well.
Well, yeah, this was early on when I started doing bike movies. We did a bike move, and I found out about it on shifttobikes.org, and Shift is a great organization.
That's quite a loading carry.
Yeah, we got a couch here. There was a full size or queen size bed, dressers.
Goodness.
Here we are moving it in. There's that bed. This was all done by bike, and it was a lot of fun. Really, it's great camaraderie. You get a ride in, and it got done quickly because a lot of people showed up. And again, you find out on that shifttobikes.org. If you want to move, check it out because people are ready, willing, and able, and really good people. And we had a lot of fun. I have the full video of that on my website along with some music and interviews as well.
Yeah. And so your website is?
crankmychain.com is the website, or crankmychain.tv, whichever you prefer. And I've got all sorts of bicycle movies. A lot of them I've produced myself, and some that I find on the internet that are interesting. Fun bike things, serious bike things, sports, recreation. Right now I'm really busy covering the cyclocross racing. The Cross Crusade is Portland's and Oregon's own cyclocross series, and it is actually the world's largest in terms of attendance of actual people who do the sport or take part in the series. It's the world's largest. Very exciting, and I've got some good videos, and they just have a ton of fun. It's not all about the competition, although some of the folks do very much take it seriously.
Well, you know, we had John Beninati on one of the shows, and he talked about cyclocross in Oregon. I didn't realize just how big and how popular it is here. It's absolutely amazing.
It is, and it's growing exponentially too. I think that's all the whole bike community is feeding off of itself and becoming bigger, and people are excited about this sport. It's a great sport to watch, and the fans have a great time, and everybody takes part. And
it's, you know, women do the cyclocross and all age groups, so it's pretty much open for everybody, I think, if you don't mind getting muddy. It's a lot of fun. I think getting muddy makes you feel like you're 12 years old again, and that's a good thing.
I think that's really the bottom line on this. Is a way for people to kind of become kids and teenagers again, you know, and just enjoy the fun of riding a bike in the mud and getting dirty and riding fast and hooting and hollering and ringing cowbells. It's good fun.
So you think you're going to do it, Dan, or are you just going to film?
You know, I am, I look at cyclocross as kind of a sadomasochist activity. And
he tried to talk me into it.
Yes, I talk about fun with marriage. But yes, anyhow, and I think that they are masochists, and I'll be with my camera, I'll be the sadist, and we can all enjoy it and the fun of it, yes. It's a tough sport, but it is a lot of fun.
Now, you guys, like you say, you have 3 kids, and you all bicycle, you all in some way. You know, some of them, I think, is too little to have their own bike, but tell us about your family bicycling and where you go and what you do.
Well, we have a trailer for our 1.5-year-old. That we put them in, and that's a real safe way to go. Talking about accidents, I recently slipped on a wet railroad trolley track here in Portland, and I'm really glad I had him in our Burley trailer because he was safe and sound. And that is something for your viewers to watch out for, are those tracks when they're wet. And I've crossed them 100 times. But anyway, I digress. We don't want to talk about the negatives here.
Well, I have to confess, I went down on some tracks too about 10 years ago, and what a feeling that was. Yeah, and I didn't have anything to hold me up.
Yeah, you got to go. It's fast. But the thing about with our kids is the oldest one will ride his own bike, or he'll ride on the back on our Burley Piccolo. And we can actually, if we're going to do a long ride or a ride that I think is a little bit more technical, I can have all 3 kids and be pulling. So I have one on the Burley Piccolo, which is like a tag-along type of a bike, and then I have one in the trailer. And so 4 of us are going down the road. If Kirsten's involved, then we can have the whole group out there. And the kids really love it. I mean, they love getting out. They love the exercise. It's a great family activity. and you know, we do picnics, we can ride with other families, really get out and explore at a really nice pace, and everybody gets exercise. Except for the 1.5-year-old, but he loves it. You know, he'll go jump and get in the Burley, and he just has such a good time.
Now, if all of a sudden he's 12 and he's still riding in that thing.
Every now and then I'll get people asking me if they can ride in the back of it. You know?
Well,
Take me.
Our 8-year-old has pulled the Burley with the baby in
Oh,
it
wow.
from OMSI, I think. OMSI Home.
Yes,
Yeah.
I have given that to him. I also have an adult tricycle, which I just love to ride.
Me too.
And I sometimes will put a amplifier in the back and play music as we'll do some of these bike rides and parades that happen around town.
As time goes on, that's going to be my next bike up. Adult tricycle, I could go shopping on.
Oh, yeah.
No need to wait. Get it now. And you don't have to worry about railroad tracks.
Good plan.
With the Burley on the back of that thing, it's like the minivan of bicycles.
Utility vehicle for sure.
Yeah. So we have a lot of fun with it.
So how do you keep your child occupied in the trailer? That's a trick that needs to be learned by parents, I think. What have you found works?
You know, this child in particular, does enjoy being on the go. So he's pretty content as long as we're rolling. Sometimes there'll be a little fuss getting him in the straps. But he's pretty good. He does like to, you know, there are those little mesh pouches on the sides. If you put some interesting things in there that he can take in and out, then he's happy.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. So
bringing, you know, water and snacks.
Yeah,
especially
snacks.
with small children, you know, I mean, they'll hit that wall. They're like little birds, and you can kind of get them keep them going. It's good for adults too, but making sure you have the supplies you need. Don't go out with, you know, if you have a young one, don't forget to bring the diapers and stuff.
You got to have the essentials.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
And what I heard you say early on is that you use your vehicles when necessary, but you try to limit the use. But you're not advocating giving away your car and just doing everything by bike.
No,
it doesn't
you know,
sound like.
When we talk about like the car-free conference and a car-free lifestyle, you know, I think cars are just motor carriages, and carriages have been around since Hannibal, right? With the thing on top of the elephant, or being drawn by a horse, or what have you. There will always be carriages of some sort or another, I think, because they serve a useful function. And I can tell you, you know, if we're going to go see Grandma and Grandpa, you know, down in Eugene or something, it makes sense for us to use that vehicle. I think the thing is that we have leaned too far in that direction in our planning around our cities, and we've made it so actually cars, in some ways, exclude any other option. And it's interesting, you know, if you look at what's happening with Portland, during when gas prices went up to $4 a gallon, we had a commuter rail system. We had a bicycle system that was in place and ready to go, which allowed people an escape valve, which kept more of our money back here in our community. And those are the type of things we need to think about when we're building car-free communities. Again, it's not about not having cars, or you shouldn't have a car. And if you do, you know, God bless you, that's great. And more power to you. And that should be an option. And in some communities, it's just not an option. So it's the type of things you think about, how, you know, the gear that you have. Planning ahead is such a big one. So there's the personal level, and there's the community level, the family level. And, you know, we really need to think about safety and being comfortable and being prepared.
You mentioned the gas prices going up, and this is kind of strange. I've lived on my street now for about 5 years, and all of a sudden there were more bicycles coming out of those houses with people commuting to work, riding their bikes to the Max train. I just go, where did these people come from? And you know, I always saw maybe one or two, but I'm talking about it was a noticeable difference. And I find that I ride a little bit more to run errands and things like that, or if I'm going to go 2 miles, I'm not going to drive my my pickup unless I have to haul something or carry some big. But I'll shop on my bike. I got to the point where I enjoy doing that.
And I'm hoping that in that experience of people having the necessity of having to ride their bikes, that they have experienced the quality of life that comes with it. And I think that that's a big part of the whole lifestyle choice for us.
It's very healthy because
fun.
Recreation, or if you want to commute, there's a lot of ways and reasons to ride a bike, and there's a lot of reasons to drive. And so, as we mentioned early on, that most of us are pedestrians, we're bicyclists, many of us are bicyclists, and we drive, and we do all three, and we can mix it up. So we have options, and we've chosen those options. Maybe not for everyone, but at least you could see that cycling is on the rise. Now, would you agree that what would make cycling safer or bicycling safer in an already relatively safe community is that to have more people on the road? And we only have a couple minutes left.
More cyclists?
For more cyclists on the road to bring around awareness.
More cyclists is more awareness. Car drivers are more used to it. Those cyclists are also, like you said, drivers, and so when they're in the car, then they have a better perspective. I think that, I rode my bicycle in Portland in the 80s, and this is a whole different environment and much better.
That's when I started, was in the 80s. We have just a little under 2 minutes to go. The time went awfully fast.
It sure did.
Now, for your shows, if they want to watch your movies, they contact you, or they can go to crankmychain.com.
Crank My Chain, you can get all my contact information there, yep.
And if they want to contact you and go look for a house by bike, now how do they contact you?
BikeRealtor.com. And I have some specialized search functions that will allow you to search in specific bike-friendly neighborhoods for homes. And you can also contact me that way to schedule a bike tour.
And any parting words for our viewers?
Well, boy, the next time I'm looking for a house, I want to ride a bike. What a great way. I mean, I just like you said, sat in the back seat of a car and got chauffeured around. It just sounds like so much fun.
Yeah. And as the realtor, it's much more fun than holding an open house on the weekend.
Really.
Well,
really.
I appreciate you guys coming on the show. And we've had Dan on before. And so I think I'm getting the 10-second. Am I getting the 10-second sign over there? I sure am. So this is Bruce Buffington and Ann Morrow reminding you, you're responsible for your own safety. Take care when sharing the road. And thank you for tuning in. Come on up, Phil. You can just come straight up.